A peaceable people defend their good name. A note to the citizens of Russia. With the publication of the following account, tens of millions of people in more than 230 lands will learn of an unwarranted repression of freedom of worship in Russia. The Watchtower magazine is the most widely translated and distributed journal in the world. This article will appear in 188 languages. Over 40 million copies will be published. Some officials may not want the international community to know what is happening to Jehovah's Witnesses in Russia. But Jesus' words will prove true. There is nothing carefully concealed that will not be revealed, and secret that will not become known. Luke 12:2. In December 2009 and January 2010, two of the highest courts in Russia declared the religious faith of Jehovah's Witnesses to be extremist. History seemed to be repeating itself. When the Soviets ruled Russia, thousands of witnesses were wrongly charged with being enemies of the nation. They were exiled, sent to prisons, and forced into labor camps. After that regime collapsed, Jehovah's Witnesses were exonerated. The new government officially restored their good name. Now, once again, some people seem determined to slander the witnesses. The following is supplementary information. Certificates of Rehabilitation. The last of the witnesses imprisoned during the Soviet era were released in 1990. Thousands of Jehovah's Witnesses were thrilled to have their reputation cleared, receiving official documents that they were not enemies of the nation, but innocent victims. Those documents are known as Certificates of Rehabilitation. Returning to the article. Early in 2009, the authorities launched an attack on the religious freedom of Jehovah's Witnesses. In February alone, prosecutors carried out more than 500 investigations across the country. The goal of this campaign? To identify supposed violations of the law by the witnesses. In the following months, the police raided peaceful religious meetings held in kingdom halls and private homes. They confiscated literature and personal possessions. The authorities deported foreign lawyers who were assisting in the witnesses' defense and barred them from re-entering the country. On October 5, 2009, customs officials detained a shipment of Bible-based literature at the border near St. Petersburg. The material had been printed in Germany and was intended for a large number of congregations in Russia. A special unit of Russian customs agents who handled dangerous contraband examined the shipment. Why? An official document stated that the shipment may contain material intended to incite religious discord. The following is supplementary information. Do you think they are extremist publications? Among the publications of Jehovah's Witnesses that the Russian Federation Supreme Court has labeled as extremist are My Book of Bible Stories, Draw Close to Jehovah, Life, How Did It Get Here? By Evolution or by Creation, Mankind's Search for God, Questions Young People Ask, Answers That Work, Volume 1. What Does the Bible Really Teach? You can read these publications online in many languages at www.watchtower.org. These publications promote respect for God and His Word, the Bible. They encourage readers to develop thinking ability and to examine closely the doctrines and philosophies they are taught. Do you think such publications should be banned? Returning to the article. The wave of harassment soon reached a critical point. The Supreme Courts of the Russian Federation and the Altai Republic, a part of Russia, declared a number of publications used by the witnesses, including the publication you are now listening to be extremist. Jehovah's Witnesses filed legal appeals, and the international community expressed concern, but to no avail. The rulings currently stand and make it illegal in Russia to import or distribute those Bible-based publications. How would the witnesses respond to these efforts to sully their reputation and restrict their activity? And what do the court's rulings signify for the religious freedom of all Russian citizens? An urgent response to the growing threat. On Friday, February 26, 2010, some 160,000 of Jehovah's Witnesses throughout Russia began distributing 12 million copies of a special tract entitled, "Could It Happen Again? A Question for the Citizens of Russia." In the Siberian city of Usolye-Sibirskaya, for example, hundreds of witnesses gathered on the streets at 5:30 in the morning. Among them were some who had been exiled to Siberia in 1951 for their faith. They braved temperatures of -40 degrees Fahrenheit, or -40 degrees Celsius, in order to distribute their allotment of 20,000 tracts. The following is supplementary information. A powerful message. The tract, "Could It Happen Again? A Question for the Citizens of Russia," clearly shows the public that Jehovah's Witnesses are not extremists. It exposes the similarities between the current attempts to discredit the activity of Jehovah's Witnesses and the steps that led to the unwarranted and tragic persecution that the witnesses experienced during Soviet times. The tract invites readers to visit a special Russian-language website, www.jw-russia.org, where they can find out more about the history and activity of Jehovah's Witnesses in Russia. The tract also quotes an internet video address by Russian President Dmitry Medvedev given in honor of the National Day of Remembrance of Victims of Political Repression. Although a small religious minority in the Soviet Union at the time, Jehovah's Witnesses were among those harshly repressed by the Soviet regime. Remembering the Oppressed. During a recent observance of the day when Russians remember those who were oppressed under the Soviet regime, President Dmitry Medvedev made the following statements. "Today is the day of remembrance of victims of political repression. It is impossible to grasp the scale of sheer terror that swept across the country. Whole sectors and classes of our nation were exterminated. Followers of all religious confessions were persecuted. This memorial is for the millions of ruined lives, for people executed without trial or record, for people exiled and sent to concentration camps, deprived of civil rights for having the wrong occupation or the improper social origins. The label enemies of the nation and their abettors was applied to entire families. Let's just think about it. Millions of people died as a result of terror and false accusations. They were deprived of all rights, even the right to a humane burial. For many years their names were simply erased from history. There is no excuse for repression." Returning to the article. To announce the three-day campaign, Jehovah's Witnesses held a press conference in Moscow, the capital of Russia. Among those invited to speak was Mr. Lev Levinson, an expert from the Human Rights Institute. He briefly recounted the senseless harassment and persecution experienced by Jehovah's Witnesses in Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union and spoke of the subsequent official exoneration of the witnesses. He also said, "All religious confessions that were persecuted during the Soviet period were declared by President Yeltsin's decree to be rehabilitated, and everything that they lost was to have been returned to them. Jehovah's Witnesses did not have any particular property under the Soviet Union, but their good name was returned to them. That good name is again threatened. In the same country that expressed its regret," said Mr. Levinson, "these people are being subjected to utterly groundless persecution." The campaign strikes a chord. Did the tract campaign accomplish its goal? Mr. Levinson said, "On the way to the press conference, I saw people in the metro who were sitting and reading a small pamphlet that Jehovah's Witnesses are distributing throughout Russia today. People are sitting and reading it, and they are reading it attentively." The footnote reads, "Hours before the press conference, congregations of Jehovah's Witnesses in Moscow began distributing the tract." End of footnote. Note, for example, the following experiences. An elderly woman in a predominantly Muslim region of central Russia accepted a tract and asked what it was about. When told that it discussed human rights and freedoms in Russia, she exclaimed, Someone is finally directing attention to these issues. In this regard, Russia has been returning to the days of the Soviet Union. Thank you very much. Good job. A woman in Chelyabinsk who was offered a tract said, "I have already received a copy of this tract and read it. I am fully on your side. I do not know of any other religion that would defend its faith in such an organized way. I like the way you people dress, and you are always tactful. It is clear that you have strong confidence in your beliefs. It seems to me that God is with you." In St. Petersburg, a man who said that he had already received the tract was asked whether he liked what he had read. "Yes," he replied. "While I was reading it, I got goosebumps, and I even cried. My grandmother was repressed during Soviet times and told me much about those who were imprisoned with her. There were many who were criminals, but there were also those who were innocent yet were imprisoned for their faith. I think that everyone should know about what happened, so you are doing the right thing." Vladimir Litvin, age 81, was exiled to Krasnoyarsky Krai when he was 14. Early Friday morning of the campaign, he led a group of Jehovah's Witnesses as they distributed the special tract. Nikolai Yasinski, age 73, eagerly participated in the campaign. He asked, "Is it really so that they are going to persecute us again and take away our right to worship Jehovah?" Stepan Levitsky, age 85, and his wife Yelena. He spent 10 years in prison for possessing a single copy of the Watchtower magazine. What does the future hold for Russia? Jehovah's Witnesses value the measure of freedom they have enjoyed in Russia for the past 2 decades. Even so, they know only too well how easily freedom can be taken away. Whether the recent wave of slander launched against them indicates that Russia is receding into another dark period of repression, time will tell. Jehovah's Witnesses, however, are firmly resolved to continue carrying out their work of preaching the Bible's message of peace and hope, come what may. The special tract sums up their resolve. Repression will never succeed. We will not stop speaking tactfully and respectfully about Jehovah God and His Word, the Bible. We did not stop when subjected to the horrors of Nazi Germany. We did not stop in the darkest days of our country's repression, and we will not stop now. End of article.